It took me 74 years to realize that the tongue is the only tool that cuts the hand of the person using it to help. If you are over 60, what you say over afternoon coffee can become the grave you dig for your own peace of mind. I speak this with the weight of 7 decades on my shoulders and the cold clarity of someone who watched his own legacy start to crumble because of a few loose words. For 35 years, I managed a bank branch. I dealt with numbers and contracts and what I thought were unbreakable bonds. I lived in the comfort of a lie. I believed that longtime friends were the family we chose. I thought that opening my heart was the way to earn a seat at the table of brotherhood. My name is Arthur Sterling. I was the man who always had a story to tell and a glass to share. I felt powerful in my transparency. I moved through my days in downtown Chicago like a man who had nothing to hide and everything to gain from the company of others. I invited people into the inner rooms of my life. I let them see the dust on my shelves and the cracks in my foundation. I thought the warmth of their presence was a shield against the cold of my widowhood. I spent my afternoons at the local club, leaning in close and whispering about my son and my savings and my fears. I was building a monument to my own loneliness, and I was using my secrets as the mortar. I had no idea that I was actually handing out the blueprints for my own destruction to men who were just waiting for a reason to tear it all down. Everything seemed perfect until the afternoon my heart decided it had seen enough. The sun was cutting through the large windows of that bistro on Michigan Avenue, just 3 months after my heart had stopped and started again. I can still smell the expensive roast of the coffee and the salt on the table. I sat there with Robert, good old Bob. We had shared 3 decades of lunches and what I thought were 1,000 unbreakable secrets. My chest still felt hollow from the surgery, and my hands were shaking just enough for me to notice and hate it. I felt small. I felt like a man whose time was leaking out of a hole he could no longer plug. So I opened my mouth. I told him about the rental property on the north side that was eating my soul. I told him the tenants were vultures and that my son Mark was barely speaking to me because I was too stubborn to ask for help. I described the exact amount of the debt and the exact depth of the rift with my only child. I thought I was unloading a heavy burden onto a brother. I saw Bob nod. I saw him lean in with that practiced look of deep concern. I felt the warmth of his hand on my sleeve as he told me everything would be fine. It was the most expensive comfort I ever bought. 2 weeks later, my phone vibrated on the nightstand at 4 in the morning. It was Mark. His voice did not sound like my son. It sounded like a judge reading a final sentence. He asked me why I was telling strangers he was a failure. He told me Robert had come to his office with a contract already drawn up and a lie in his throat. Robert told my son that his father was senile and losing his grip on reality. He told Mark that the property was a sinking ship and that he was doing our family a favor by taking it off my hands for a fraction of what it was worth. In that one phone call, the walls of my life did not just crack, they dissolved. I realized in that freezing moment that I had not been talking to a friend for all those years. I had been feeding a predator who was just waiting for the scent of blood to finally bite down on everything I had left. I went back to the club the next morning. I wore my most expensive suit and sat in the same leather chair that smelled of stale tobacco and old money. I thought I could manage the damage like I used to manage a bank ledger. I believed that if I showed them my bank balance and talked about the strength of my 401k, they would see I was still a man of substance. I was wrong. I was just giving them a map to the vault I had already left unlocked. I tried to buy their loyalty with rounds of drinks and stories of my past successes. I told them about my heart recovery in detail, thinking it made me look like a survivor. I did not see that to them, I was just a machine with failing parts. I even tried to justify my son Mark's anger to those men at the bar. I thought if they understood the context, they would stop whispering. But they did not want to understand. They wanted to consume. I was washing my family's dirty laundry in the middle of a public square and wondering why everyone was pointing at the stains. I spent a month trying to outrun the shadow of my own mistakes by making new ones. I was desperate to keep my pride intact, so I revealed even more regrets and old sins to prove I had nothing to hide. I thought that by being an open book, they would stop trying to write my ending. I was a wounded animal, trying to convince the pack I was still the leader. The more I spoke, the more I bled. I did not realize that my silence was the only thing that could have saved me until I walked into the restroom and heard the laughter of the men I called brothers as they joked about how easy it was to bleed me dry. I stood there in that cold bathroom with the smell of bleach stinging my eyes and the sound of those voices echoing off the tile. Each laugh felt like a physical blow to my chest. They were not just talking about my property or my heart surgery. They were mocking the very soul I had laid bare for them. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, and I did not recognize the man staring back. I saw a beggar, a man so hungry for a moment of connection that he had fed his own life to the wolves. I realized in that freezing silence that my transparency was not strength. It was a leak in a ship that was already taking on water. I had been trying to buy a sense of belonging with the currency of my own dignity. I was the one who had given Robert the map to the office of my son. I was the one who had handed them the knife and pointed to the softest part of my neck. That realization burned worse than the betrayal itself. It was my fault. I had treated my life like a public park when it should have been a private sanctuary. I turned on the tap and splashed ice-cold water over my face until my skin went numb. I watched the droplets fall into the sink, and I made a silent vow: no more. I was done being the entertainment for people who would not even show up to my funeral. I walked out of that bathroom, and I did not look back. I did not say a word to the men at the bar. I did not explain. I did not argue. I just left. And in that silence, I felt a power I had not known in 74 years. I finally understood that the most important things in my life were never meant to be shared. They were meant to be guarded. I learned the hard way that every word you speak is a stone you either use to build your wall or give to someone else to throw at you. Listen to me now, because the air in my lungs is getting more expensive every day, and I do not have time for pleasantries. Never tell anyone the exact balance of your accounts or the size of your pension, not even the man you have known for 40 years. To the world, your money is not your security. It is a target. The moment they know what you have, they start calculating how much of it should belong to them, or judging you for every meal you buy. Wealth is a shield that only works when it is invisible. If they can see it, they can find a way to take it or make you feel guilty for holding on to it. Then there is your family. When you sit at those tables and complain about your son or your grandchildren, you think you are seeking sympathy from a friend. You are actually giving strangers permission to disrespect the people you love. You are providing the ammunition that will eventually be used to humiliate your own blood when you are not in the room. Family problems are meant to be handled behind locked doors, with the lights low and the voices hushed. Outside those walls, your family should be an unbreakable front. Anything else is just inviting the vultures to a feast that you prepared with your own hands. Stop talking about your failing knees and your heart medication and your fear of the night. When you focus on your fragility in front of others, they stop seeing you as a man and start seeing you as a burden. They start looking past you instead of at you, and they begin to treat your presence like a chore they have to finish. Pity is the most poisonous form of attention you can receive. It is the first step toward being erased from the world before you are even gone. Stand tall and keep your pain to yourself, because the world has no mercy for those who broadcast their weakness. And for the love of everything you hold dear, stop confessing your old sins and your deep regrets to people who were not there to see the context. You might think you are clearing your conscience, but you are really just building a legal file against your own character. People do not forgive like the heavens do. They remember every mistake, and they store them in a dark corner of their minds until the day they need a weapon to win an argument or a reason to look down on you from a height. What the years have buried should stay buried under the weight of your own dignity. I am telling you this because the time I have left is too short to be spent explaining my life to people who only want to see me stumble. Your silence is the only thing that keeps your dignity intact and your house standing in a world that wants to tear it down for parts. Look at your life and see the leaks before they become a flood that sweeps everything you built into the gutter. Close your mouth today so you can sleep in peace tomorrow. If you have a friend who is worth the weight of your trust, then send this to them without a single word of explanation. They will know exactly what I mean, and they will respect the silence you are building together. I hope you find the strength to be quiet before the world forces you to be forgotten. I am standing at the edge of my life, and the view is finally clear. The clock on my wall does not just tick, it screams. Every second I spent trying to be understood by people who only wanted to be entertained was a second I stole from my own soul. You think you have time to fix the leaks, but the water is already at your chin. If you are sitting there right now, wondering if you should tell that story, or share that worry, or reveal that bank balance, I am begging you to swallow the words until they burn. It is better to be a mystery they cannot solve than a tragedy they can laugh at over dinner. I almost lost my son because I wanted the approval of a man who did not even like me. Do not make my mistake. Go to your phone right now. Look at the names. Realize that most of them are just tourists in your life, waiting for a disaster so they can take a photo of the wreckage. Delete the need to be seen. Embrace the power of being unreachable. Your legacy is not what people say about you at the club or the coffee shop. It is the peace you keep inside your own four walls. If you have one person left who actually guards your heart, then send them this message and say nothing at all. Let the silence be your handshake. Let your reserve be your crown. Because once the words are out, they belong to the world, and the world has never known how to be kind to an old man who has given his secrets away. Close the door, turn off the light, and for the first time in your life, listen to the beautiful sound of everything you are choosing not to say.